Well, good morning and welcome to the cosy warmth of our living room on a day where there have been weather warnings for stormy weather. None of us like storms. They're unsettling and we are on edge, wondering if the bins are going to be knocking into a neighbour's car or roof tiles are going to blow off. We feel unsettled. In October 1987, Richard and I slept through the great storm in Tunbridge Wells. We didn't hear a thing, nothing. And yet, just 100 or so feet away, huge horse chestnut trees were crashing to the ground and through neighbours' roofs. When we picked our way through the debris the following morning, we discovered that a large metal bus shelter had been ripped from the concrete and blown up the hill. We had been totally unaware of the carnage that was happening all around us as we slept. Now, storms come in all shapes and sizes. We could say that this last year has been a storm, where our freedoms have been necessarily curtailed. It's been a bit like being told to be below decks during a storm for our own safety. The progression of COVID-19 started out like a small cloud on the horizon before blowing across the world, bringing death and destruction. And like the Great Storm of 1987, it was first met with a lot of skepticism. Do you remember Michael Fish saying, "What hurricane?" And at the beginning of this pandemic, we thought, well, it was just something that was somewhere else. It wouldn't affect us. But like the 1987 storm, it will take years to repair the damage. And the effects of COVID, like the effects of the Great Storm, will be felt for years to come. So we want to avoid storms. And yet today, I want you to encourage to read a little bit in Mark. Mark chapter 4, 35 to 41. And I'll give a précis of this. So Jesus asks his disciples to sail across the Sea of Galilee to take him to the other side. And while they're on the water, a furious squall rises up. Now, these men had seen storms before. They were seasoned fishermen. They knew how to handle boats in heavy weather. But now, for some reason, they are afraid, very afraid. And Jesus is calmly fast asleep. As the boat pitches and tosses and waves go over the bows, Jesus is asleep. And the disciples are incredulous. How can he sleep? Jesus rebukes the storm, basically telling it to be muzzled. And as the storm abates and the wind dies down, the disciples are amazed. Who is this that even wind and waves obey him? Now, the thing is, the disciples were exactly where they were supposed to be. They were meant to be with Jesus, taking him from one side of the sea to the other. Often when storms arise, we think, oh, that it's us, we must be in the wrong place. It shouldn't be happening to us. We argue that if we're doing God's will, then everything should be plain sailing. We are happy and blessed if we trust and obey, and that we would be protected from whatever storms arise. But this is not so. Being where we are supposed to be doesn't mean that we won't face storms, that we won't face trouble. When we look at the lives of the early disciples, they faced storms, they faced persecution, they faced martyrdom, they faced shipwreck, famine, exclusion. And they would have remembered the words of Psalm 23. In the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. They would have remembered Jesus's words saying, that while they may have trouble, he is still with them. They may be storm-tossed, but they are not abandoned. Recently, Richard and I have been watching and Richard's been reading the Narnia stories. And in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the ship is caught in what can only be described as an evil storm. And finally, Lucy, the heroine, cries out, "Aslan, please help us." And at that moment, the clouds part and a white albatross is seen soaring high above the storm. And the albatross leads them out of the storm to safety. As I said, they may have been storm-tossed, but they were not abandoned. So finally, as we face our storms, I found this prayer of St. Columba of Iona, and be encouraged by it. He wrote, "Alone with none but you, my God, I journey on my way. What need I fear when you are near, O Lord of night and day? More secure am I within your hand than if a multitude around me stand." So be blessed, and whatever storms you are going through, remember you are not going through them alone. Our God is with us, walking with us and facing the storm together with us. So be blessed, and we will see you as we continue the stories of Jesus' journey tomorrow. God bless.